Welcome back to my channel.
She did it! Welcome back, family. Today we are continuing with our SOHCAHTOA. We're going to find only missing sides today. This lesson is brief. Most of the problems on the quiz are the same, and I actually think that this is slightly easier than last time's lesson. Because last time's lesson we had to solve a whole triangle. And this time, all we're focusing on is the first step, making this trig ratio and solving for a side. So we're doing this. We're going to use angles of elevation and depression to do these problems. Angles, when you see angles of elevation and depression, essentially that should just indicate to you that these trig problems are real world problems. I'm not just giving you a triangle and asking you to find a side. I'm actually giving you like a real world setup and asking you to find a real length. So when we find an angle or when we work with angles of elevation and depression, we always base our calculations or we base our triangle off of a line of sight. So from a horizontal line of sight, an angle of elevation or an angle of depression can be measured to a point or object above or below the horizontal line. That's just so many words, but it's not. The real situation is much easier. So this idea of line of sight is being described right here. So if you're looking up, here's the guy's line of sight. These lines are like coming out of his face. If the person is looking up, this is an angle of elevation. So all it means is that your angle is the hypotenuse is going up. So this is elevation. Hypotenuse is going up to the right. This is depression. Hypotenuse is going down toward the right. So they make a big deal, and by they, I mean our notes and our procedures for doing these problems. Make a big deal about what's an angle of elevation and what's an angle of depression, but really when we get to our problems, it's very straightforward and easy because in each of these problems, they are always going to give us a side and an angle. So for every single problem, they will give us a side and an angle, and we will find another missing side. So our first one says, you are sitting in the bleachers at a concert. The angle of depression from the horizontal sight to the stage is 24. So you're in the stage. You're right here, so sorry. Oh, it's like an amphitheater, like USANA, or like Rio Tinto. And you are looking down to the stage. That angle right there is 24. So now I know that the angle that the triangle, I should say, that they're wanting me to focus on is that guy. How do I know? Because I know I'm sitting here and I'm looking down toward the stage. Also, I'm drawing the triangle that the angle is in. Now, we got to name this triangle based off of this angle. So this is your opposite side because it's across from 24. D is your hypotenuse, which means that the adjacent is the top of the triangle. So they give me an angle. Based off of that angle, I label AOH. If your seat is 45 feet above the stage level, what is your actual distance, or D, from the stage? So they're asking us to find the hypotenuse. So we want H. Kids. We actually have O. Now, where I have O written, there's not a number there, but what is the length of O? 45. If this is 45 feet high, then its opposite side is the same, 45 feet. So if I have O and H, that means I'm going to use sine or use so. So maybe at the top of my paper here, just to remind myself, all right, so ka toa, just as a reminder. Okay, now we just set it up. This is what we did last time. We know that the sine of a 24-degree angle is equal to the opposite, which is 45, over the hypotenuse, which is what we want. Then based off of last time's lesson, to find hypotenuse, you just switch those. So 45 over sine 24. So I can hopefully escape out of this, hop over to Desmos really quick, choose the calculator, say 45 backslash sine, not sun, 24. And then let's round to the nearest whole. So this 6, right after the decimal, says I need to go up by 1. So instead of 110, we're going to say that that distance is 111 feet. In Canvas, you're not going to need to put in the units, so I'm not going to box the units, just so you guys know you don't have to write in FT in Canvas. All you need to do is write in the number. So the distance from you to the stage, the actual distance is 111. Now notice here we didn't really talk about line of sight or angle of elevation or depression, because essentially we can just use our basic knowledge of a right triangle. If we wanted to use those words, your line of sight is your adjacent side, and you have an angle of depression because the hypotenuse is going down. Okay, next guy. A sonar operator on a ship detects a submarine at a distance of 500 meters and an angle of depression of 40. Find out how deep the submarine is. Okay, so they tell us this is our angle of depression. We're going to label this triangle using 40 as our focus angle. So straight across from that would be O. H is 500, and hypotenuse is going down, so it is an angle of depression, which means the top of the triangle is adjacent. They are asking us to find how deep the submarine is. So this time they are asking us to find O. They want to know how deep the submarine is. We have H, but we want O. So out of my SOHCAHTOA, the only one that has those two letters is SO. So use sine. So we will say sine of the angle that they gave us, 40, is equal to the opposite, which is what we're trying to find, O, over the hypotenuse of 500. Now remember, this is one where you don't switch. This 500 just moves to the front of the sign. You only switch when there's a letter there. So O is 500 sine 40. 500 sine 40. So you guys plug that into Desmos just to verify that you're rounding correctly. Round everything to the nearest whole. So about 10. Three. Okay, I'm getting 321. Great. And that would be meters, but I'm writing my units outside the box just because I don't want you guys to have to worry if you write those letters in or not in Canvas. So we start every single one of these problems by identifying what we have and what we want. So I want you to practice this one, just finding these things. We have, we want, so what should we use? And those will be the letters A, O, or H. Let's go roughly 20-ish. About 10. Okay, so this time we have an angle of elevation. I know that because my hypotenuse is going up. My hypotenuse is going up from this angle. Based off of this 75-degree angle, my height is the opposite side. The hypotenuse is the diagonal, and then the bottom of my triangle is adjacent. So I have A, I want O, so I need to use TOA. Tangent of 75 is equal to opposite, which I'm trying to find, over adjacent, which is 19. Then this is one where I just have to move this 19 in front of the tangent to get the variable that I want alone. So the height of this lighthouse, we're just typing in 19 tan 75. I'm having you do it so that you can practice your rounding. You got about 10. Five. About 3, 2. Okay, I'm getting 71. Okay, so now let's have you do number 4 all on your own. Number 4, all on your own. There's nothing new or crazy about it. I'm going to do one quick walkthrough and then we'll check answers. Take it all the way to the end so you actually find the height of that screen. Let's go about 10. Five. Okay, I think it's 80. Is that what you guys got?
Yeah.
Okay, so I just need to tell you a few things, and then the rest of the period is yours. Make sure that you're listening, yes?
Yes.
Number one, if you're somebody that likes to get help from me, make sure that you're writing your work somewhere, because it's really quick for me to find out where you're going wrong if your work's written down. But if you don't write your work down, then we can't figure out where you went wrong. So one, I would highly suggest that you show your work on separate sheet of paper. Two, one of your problems, you have to use cosine. So be aware that it's not always sine and tangent. There will be at least one problem in the quiz where the function is cosine, and that's okay. You solve it exactly the same as these ones. There's nothing surprising. When you get to the last few, they're like this one, where you have to really think about and look at the measurements that they're giving you so that you know what to use in your triangle. Most of them are straightforward, and you don't have to figure anything out. You just need to notice that if this is 45, this is 45. There is one where it takes an extra element, but I think you'll be fine. I'm pretty sure that that is the last one. And then lastly, and you might want to write this down in your notebook or wherever you're going to solve these out at. Toward the end, you get a triangle that's really small. He's like a sliver. And they write the angle measure out below because it doesn't fit in the triangle. So just know, if they give you an angle measure but it's not in the triangle, that's usually the angle measure that you use. The other thing is they tell you the hypotenuse is 1 mile. But then they want you to write your answer as feet. So I put this in the problem, but just to make you aware, when you go to do this problem, change 1 mile to 5280. That's the amount of feet 1 mile is. So I gave you that hint and highlighted it to hopefully jog your memory. But other than this one and the one, there's this one and one other one that's slightly harder. The rest are just like these 4 problems. We're okay? You'll give it a go? Okay, give it a go. If you get ones wrong,